Hi, everybody. My name is Nanika Edwards. I'm a poet, author, artist, linguist, and educator from Trinidad and Tobago in the Southern Caribbean. And as an author, I write books, mainly poetry books, but some other types of books as well, with prose or poetic prose that are either for children or for adults. So, and yes, of course, teenagers as well. So I write all kinds of books, and they are available on Amazon. Anyway, in this video, what I would like to do is show you how a poem can be analyzed. I hope it's helpful for you. I know a lot of people find poetry a little intimidating, but please keep in mind that poetry is really supposed to be a common sense kind of thing. A lot of times when people don't enjoy poetry or don't understand poetry, I think a lot of times it has more to do with the poem than with the person who's reading the poem. I personally think that a lot of times when people don't get a poem, it could be because maybe it wasn't written properly. Just because a poem is a poem, looks like a poem, doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good poem. Of course, keep in mind that just because we don't understand something doesn't mean that it's not good. But the more discriminating that we become when I say discriminating, I mean the more that we can distinguish, the more that we can identify what is good from what is bad, what is quality from what is not good quality, what is good quality from what is not good quality, in terms of writing in this case, excuse me, then it will become easier to figure out, okay, this poem was just badly written, or this is a good poem. It's just that there's something I'm not getting. Okay, so eventually you will get to the point where you can be really discriminating about these things, discriminating in a positive sense. It's not a negative. It doesn't have a negative meaning in this sense. It just means being able to distinguish between what is good and what is not so good, which is a good thing, right? Okay, so in this poem, which is, to be honest, I don't have a title for this poem. Wow, there's a plane passing by. Are you hearing that? Sometimes I hear things, and then when I listen to the audio that I'm going to put online, I realize what I heard was not picked up. It's a little past midnight on the 6th of February 2024, and a plane was just flying overhead. So I don't know if the audio is going to pick that up. But anyway, I have a very short poem, 5 lines, no, 4 lines long. And well, let's get into it. There's no title for this. Some of my poems are like that. This is kind of like a proverb type poem, but it does not have a title. Feel free to give it a title if you would like, or to suggest a title, I would say. If I didn't give it a title, you don't have to give it a title, right? It's up to me to give it a title or not. But if you want to have fun with it, and if you'd like to suggest some titles, feel free. Okay, so let's get right into this. I'm going to highlight some things that you can generally look out for in this poem and other poems, other poetry. Okay, so let's read this. Many a mango, many a kind. Some are sweet, some are blind. I speak not of fruit, but of man. There is good and bad throughout the land. And one of the things that I would always recommend for somebody who is getting into reading poetry, whether you're a novice or whether you're experienced and you've been doing this for a while, I would recommend that if time permitting, I would recommend that you read the poem that you're looking at least twice. Read it at least twice. Of course, if you just pleasure reading and you're just, going through a poetry book, not necessary. That's not necessary. But if you'd like to really extract as much as you can from a poem, then I would recommend reading it at least twice. So we're going to read it another time. Okay, I'm going to read it again. And by the way, ordinarily, when a poem is presented, we would give the title, you state the title of the poem, and then you would say by such and such a poet, and then you would get into your reading, okay? So I'm going to start this off. This is a poem by Nanika Edwards. It does not have a title, but I hope you enjoy it nonetheless. Many a mango, many a kind. Some are sweet, some are blind. I speak not of fruit, but of man. There is good and bad throughout the land. Okay, so 4 lines. Let's go through this. I'll try not to make this too long, but let's go through this really quickly. Okay, so no title, right? So we're just diving right in at the deep end, so to speak. Many a mango. So we see the first half of the first line. Many a mango. Okay, so many a mango. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, this is about mangoes, right? This, when I get to this point, I'm probably thinking, oh, okay, there was no title, but maybe this is about mangoes, because the first line of a poem, and in this case, the first part of the first line, is very important. It's kind of like when you write a poem, not a poem, when you write a story in prose, like not as a poem, but as a piece of prose writing where you have blocks of text. We know that the opening sentence or the opening paragraph is key to everything else that comes in the story. It's the same thing for poetry. The first line, and in this case we see that not only is it the first line, but the first part, the first portion of the first line in those 3 words tells us something, right? So many a mango, right? Oh, and we're thinking, okay, maybe this is about mangoes, right? Then we get to many a kind. And we may be thinking, okay, yeah, if you're from Trinidad or from the Caribbean, you would know, yeah, there are many different kinds of mangoes. If I'm not mistaken, I think I've read that out of all the fruits on this planet, mango is the one that has the most variations. I'm not sure if that's true. Maybe somebody could let me know, but as far as I know, mango is the one fruit that has the most varieties. Let me look that up real quick and make sure I'm not sharing alternative facts here. Let's see, which fruit has the most I'm getting most vitamin C. No, I'm not interested in that right now. Which fruit has the most, should I say species? What is it? Most varieties, not species, varieties. I'm not sure if you say species of fruit. I think it'd be varieties. Which fruit has the most varieties? Oh, apples. Well, in the UK, wait, apples are by far the most diverse fruit in terms of variety? Really? 2,500 varieties of apple. Wow. Okay, I thought it was a mango, but I don't even know if that's correct. I'm not sure, but you can look it up if you would like. It's neither here nor there. But anyway, many a kind. We know that there are many different types of mangoes. Here in Trinidad alone, we have lots of different types of mangoes, right? Can you think of some types of mangoes if you're a kid and you're listening to this, can you think of different types of mangoes that we have in Trinidad? You can pause the video and see if you can say some, and then I'm going to tell you some of the ones that I know. Okay, so did you think of any? Do you like mangoes, by the way? I didn't always like mangoes. I like them now, though. All right, so mangoes. Different types of mangoes. There's starch, Julie, calabash, zabuka mangoes. Is there zabuka? No, zabiko, sorry. Zabiko. I think I'm getting this from that folk song, Mangoes, Mangoes. There's what else is there? When I was growing up, my family had what was called a um, ice cream mango tree. We called it ice cream mango, but I think in Guyana they call it box spice or something like that. I think that's what they call it. Anyway, we have different types of mangoes. So many a mango, many a kind. So now we're thinking, okay, this has to be about mangoes. Then we get to the next line. Some are sweet. And we're thinking, okay, yeah, some mangoes are sweet. And then we get to the second part of the second line. Some are blind. Some are sweet, some are blind. And then we're thinking, some are blind. Okay, she's not talking about mangoes. She's talking about something else because fruits are not gifted with sight. Fruits cannot see things, right? So now we know, okay, she's not talking about fruits. Okay, so now we want to see what's in the next line, right? So this kind of builds up some expectation here. We're like, okay, what is she really talking about? And in the third line, we say, I speak not of fruit. And you're thinking, yeah, well, I realize that now. Thank you for confirming that. I speak not of fruit, but of man. And then you're like, but of man, really? Well, let's go back. Many a mango. Well, if I'm not talking about fruit, but I'm speaking about men, and when I say man, I'm talking about like mankind or men in the general generic sense of that word. And no, I'm not going to get into any gender battle over this. I mean, I personally don't have a problem with the words man and mankind. I really think the world is just becoming a little too oversensitive and about everything. But anyway, um, okay, so I speak not of fruit but of man. So you say, oh, speak not of fruit but of man. Okay, all right. There is, and then we go to the next line. There is good and bad throughout the land, right? So there is good and bad throughout the land. So now we know, okay, what is she saying? We know that the poet, that's myself, is saying there are good people and there are bad people. What is she also saying? People are like mangoes. There are many different kinds of people, just like there are many different kinds of mango. Sorry, there are many different kinds of mangoes. There are many different types of people, just like there are many different types of mangoes. So now that we know that I wasn't talking about mangoes, I'm talking about people, we can replace mango with men or people, right? So many men, many kinds of men. Some men are sweet, some men are blind. I'm speaking about men. There are good ones and bad ones throughout the land. That's essentially what this poem is saying, right? But of course, in a poetic way. Of course, if I was writing prose, and if it's not poetic prose, I might just say, there are many different types of people in the world. Some people are good, some people are bad. And you're going to meet a lot of these people as you go about everyday life. That's probably what I would say if I were writing in prose, right? But this is poetry, and with poetry, the language is more what's the word I'm looking for? It's more finely crafted. It's like the difference between poetry and prose, or like the difference between, like, a poem is like jewelry, finely crafted jewelry. Sometimes so exquisite, it's like gold gold with diamonds and different gems worked into a pattern that combines gold with some type of glittering stone. Those would be like the high end poems. And yes, I've written some poems that I think fit that analogy. But then you've got some poems that, yeah, they're still jewelry, but they're a little simpler. They're the language is still beautiful. It's still a beautiful piece of poetry. It's just that it's not gold or some precious metal and precious gems and rare gems and that kind of thing. There are poems like that, but then you have poems like this that are simple, like maybe like the equivalent of a coral bracelet. Like this isn't even a necklace because it's so short. This is more like a bracelet, right? And then prose would be more like what would prose be like compared to a poem? Prose is like maybe a t-shirt. But when you put this coral chain or other chain over this t-shirt, when you put it on and it falls on the t-shirt, there's no comparison. The chain, there's just something special about the jewelry, right? Especially if it's a plain t-shirt. So you get my drift, right? There's a difference between, even though a shirt is bigger, takes up more space than a necklace or a bracelet, there's something about the jewelry that's just special in and of itself. Poetry is like that. Anyway, let's pull out some more things from this poem or from this proverb. It's both a proverb and a poem at the same time. So first of all, what's one of the what have you noticed about this poem? Could you tell me anything that you've noticed? That's right. It's a rhyming poem. Rhyming. Which lines rhyme with which lines? Right. The first line rhymes with the second line, and the third line rhymes with the fourth line. If you want to know where the rhymes are, most times, not always, but most times, the rhymes are at the end of the line. So kind rhymes with blind, and man rhymes with land. And do allow me to point out that kind and blind are perfect rhymes. Kind and blind are perfect rhymes because they both end in IND and produce identical end sounds, right? Eind. Man and land are not perfect rhymes. You have an and, but they're close enough that they work and they're not jarring to the senses. They're not jarring to the air, right? To the airs. So man and land are what are called half rhymes, or I guess you could say imperfect rhymes. And no, you don't have to worry about the terminology. I mean, it's good to know terminology, but once you can just explain that, they're not perfect rhymes, that's fine. Just use whatever language brings across what you would like to say. What else can we say about this poem? Well, let's continue speaking about the rhyme. In poetry, we have what are called rhyme schemes. So we're not only interested in the fact that there is rhyme, but we also want to know what the rhyming pattern is for any poem. And I know there are people who say, rhyming poems are just for kids. But I've written many poems that rhyme that are not for kids, that are actually for adults or teenagers. So, and you may say, we don't agree with you, but guess what? Think of your favorite song, whether it's a soca tune or a pop song or a country song or jazz tune or rock and roll. I mean, whatever it is, gospel, whatever. Does it rhyme? Think about that. Think about how much you love those songs. Do they rhyme? Yeah, so you do like rhyming. Rhyming can be for kids and adults. And you may say, but that's a song. Well, a song is a poem with music, essentially. A song is essentially a poem with music. And, we could probably have a discussion about that on another day about the differences between songs and poems because there are some differences, but, a few differences. But a song is essentially a poem with music that you sing instead of just recite. Okay, so we want to look at the rhyme scheme here. There is a rhyme scheme. So, what do I mean by rhyme scheme? You could replace the word scheme with pattern if you would like. What is a rhyming pattern? So, rhyming, to represent the rhyming pattern of a poem, we use the letters of the alphabet, capitalized, usually, I think, starting with the letter A. So, kind rhymes with blind. So, we have the rhyming pattern there A, A. First line, A. Second line, A. There's an A pattern there. Then we have two completely new sounds in the third and fourth line, man and land. And even though they're not perfect rhymes, they still create a pattern, right? So kind, blind, man, land. So A, and then what do you think comes next? That's right, B, B. So the rhyming pattern for these four lines is A, B, B. And when you represent the pattern, like if you're jotting it in on the next to the poem, you would put those letters right next to the last word at the end of the rhyme. But if you're just writing it out as part of an essay or something like that, then you can just put, okay, the rhyming pattern is A, B, B, right? And you don't have to write out the lines. You just say the rhyming pattern. Let's say the rhyming pattern in the first stanza is A, B, B. Now, if you have a longer poem, you may find that if there is a rhyming pattern, there may not be a rhyming pattern, like if it's not a rhyming poem, and not all poems rhyme or have to rhyme. But if there is a rhyming pattern, you may find, for example, that the rhyme scheme in the first stanza, if the poem is broken up into stanzas, the rhyme scheme in the first stanza may not be the same as the rhyme scheme in the second stanza, right? So you can have all of these different kinds of variations. So that's the other thing to look out for in any poem that you read. Try to figure out what the rhyme scheme is. Every time you come up with a new sound, a new rhyming combination, a new sound like eind versus an, then you go to the next letter in the alphabet. All right, what else can we say about this poem? Well, we can talk about the rhythm. How do you know if a poem is well written, especially if it rhymes? Well, what you can do is tap out the beats. I'm hitting the table right now while you're reading. If the beat is consistent, then you will know that that was a well-written poem. Have you ever heard a song, like maybe a song that you like or that you don't like, whatever, but you hear a song and you listen and you're like, gosh, why did they force that word into the music? It almost feels like there may be some part of the song where you feel like, but those words didn't fit the music. It feels like they forced it in, like there were too many words in that line and they don't fit the music properly. Yeah, you look out for things like that in poetry. And so if you can tap out a consistent beat, then you know it's a good poem. So let's go. Many a mango, many a kind. Some are sweet, some are blind. I speak not of fruit, but of man. There is good and bad throughout the land. Right? So that's not forced. That's not forced. I know I changed the rhythm of what I was saying, but it's believe you me, it's not forced. So this is a good poem. I'll do that again. Many a mango, many a kind. Some are sweet, some are blind. I speak not of fruit, but of man. There is good and bad throughout the land. Right? So I was able to tap out a consistent beat without without the reading sounding artificial or contrived. So I know that it's a good poem, even though I changed the rhythm for the last two lines. So that's the other thing you can look out for when you're trying to decide if a poem is well written or not. So, for example, when I read this poem, even when I don't tap out the beat, I can see that it's comfortable. You know, it's comfortable. It's comfortable to read. Many a mango, many a kind. Some are sweet, some are blind. I speak not of fruit, but of man. There is good and bad throughout the land. Right? There was nothing forced there. Right? So there was nothing awkward. So that's the other thing that you can look out for when trying to decide if a poem is a good quality poem or maybe more on the mediocre side. So I think that's it. I don't know if there's anything else that you noticed in this poem. And I should give Jack his jacket and give credit and Jim his gym boots, as I heard somebody say on the radio today. I thought that was very clever. I've never heard that before. Give Jack his jacket and Jim his gym boots. This poem or proverb was inspired by a friend of mine. She's senior to me by about maybe three or four decades. She's significantly older than I am, and I remember her telling me that people are like mangoes. She's very philosophical, you know. Interestingly enough, she did not complete. She did not complete secondary school. She did not go on to secondary school. She stopped at the end of primary school. And let me tell you something. For kids doing SEA, the exam that our young ones sit at the end of primary school, I just want you to know that no exam can decide who you become in life. No exam can decide that. An exam may not even necessarily tell you how intelligent you are. Some people are not comfortable writing exams. Some people are not comfortable writing certain kinds of exams. Therefore, if you write an exam when you're not comfortable, or if something happened on the day to throw you off, when you get your results, please do not feel that a 10 out of 20 or a 15 out of 20 or a 3 out of 20 says anything about your intelligence, right? The other thing is, you may have specific challenges, maybe specific challenges that are unique to you that somebody else may not have. And it says nothing about your intelligence. It just says that you may have a different way of learning, or you may need to learn things in a different way so that you can have the same kind of clarity as maybe somebody else learning in a way that works for them, right? People are like mangoes, right? Just like what this poem is saying. There are many different kinds of mangoes, and if we take this a step further, we people have different personalities and different neurological wiring. Our brains are wired differently. Some people are wired to learn in a particular way. So, kids, I just want to encourage you. Please do not let any exam, excuse me, please do not let any exam tell you who you are, what you are capable of, or who you are going to become. Because no exam can tell you that. Life is a very long journey, and the important thing is to run it well at every stage to the best of your ability, whatever the best of your ability may look like. That would be my encouragement to you. Um, I have seen very intelligent people, I mean really intelligent people, not do so well with exams, right? You have people who um, may be very good at exams, who down the road, like when they're 20, 30 years old, professionally speaking, they may be bypassed by somebody who never completed primary school or never completed secondary school, high school, or who never went to university. These things can happen. Let me tell you something, the playing field eventually gets very leveled, you know. So don't let any exam try to tell you who you are, how smart you are, and what you're capable of, and who you will be in the future. And kids, always remember this. Each one of us, and that includes you, is made in the very image of God. God took some aspect, some dimension of who He is, and He put that inside of you because you're special to Him. And just know that God has done that because He loves you. He thinks you're special. Not only does He think you're special, He knows you're special. And there may be different things that happen in your life at different points that may try to tell you the very opposite of that. They may try to tell you that you're not as special, you're not as good as, all of these different things. But just know that you are unique, and it is what makes you unique that makes you beautiful. So, Christine, you do not have to be Karen. Nathan, you do not have to be Stephen or Nathaniel. You are who you are, right? So, many a mango, many a kind. Imagine how boring the world would be if all mangoes were exactly the same. No, we are different. And that's where the beauty lies, okay? So, and to parents, I would encourage you, this is long enough as it is, but parents, I would encourage you, please take this poem a little further and have a conversation with your children about the fact that some men are sweet and some men are blind. And when I say sweet, I don't mean that in a feminine way, meaning that some mangoes, some mangoes sweet, right? Some mangoes are blind, meaning, okay, even if you think about mangoes in general, some mangoes, as my friend was explaining to me who gave me this idea, which is what I was telling all about, she said, some mangoes are sweet, some mangoes are sour, some mangoes, I guess, are sweet and sour. You might find that at a Chinese restaurant, right? But and some mangoes, you look at them, they yellow, 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 they look sweet, and then you realize they're watery, watery, watery. There are different kinds of mangoes, different kind of fruit, different kind of people. Parents, please, even from this young age, start preparing your kids for the kinds of people they're probably going to meet as they start growing older, the people they will meet even in primary school, the people they'll meet in high school, prepare them for high school, and how to choose the right friends, how to be a good friend. Please explain to them that not everybody is sweet and some people are blind. Some people are good, some people are bad, some people are in between. Good and well, we're all kind of in between, good and bad, but some have more good than bad, some have more bad than good, right? So please teach your kids how to choose the right friends, how to be a good friend, how to understand, how to navigate this world and this experience called life. They're not too young to understand these things. And of course, you will do it in a way that will be appropriate for their level, their stage of development. But parents, I would encourage you to do this. Don't leave it up to the teachers. The teachers are not parents. Yes, they can act like parents, but parents, it's your responsibility to discipline your children, right? Primarily, it is your responsibility. And yes, it takes a village to raise a child, but education starts at home, right? And education is not about memorizing facts and filling in multiple choice circles, A, B, C, or D. Education is a lot more than that. Okay, so I hope this was useful. I hope this was encouraging. Parents, thank you for taking the time to listen to this. Kids, thank you for taking the time to listen to this. I hope it was helpful. And well, if you enjoyed this video, thank you for giving it a thumbs up. And on the kids' channels, comments are not allowed, but if you would like to send me a comment, I would appreciate it. You can find my email address, I think, in the About section of the YouTube channel. And I would love to hear from you. Feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to chat with people and to hear what people have to say. I welcome that. So if you enjoyed this video, thank you for giving it a thumbs up. And if you have not yet subscribed, but you would like to get more content like this, and if you'd like to enjoy the other types of content that I am sharing, then please subscribe. Until next time.